Right, Jack, we're live. Again, as with everything I do, this won't be very professional. But thanks for finally finding our time. I know we've both been a bit of a nightmare to pin down into one time in one time zone at one point in time. So yeah, thanks for making it all happen. And yeah, welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're on like literal polar opposites of the Earth, so that's the main issue, I think. But yeah, I guess there's been some other setbacks too. So
yeah, you're not just trying to avoid me. That's not what it is? Complete opposite side of the world. And
if I see like the Google Calendar event, I just like close my computer for the day. Just like no.
Yeah, I think the world tried to completely wipe me out as well last week. So, but you know, I've still survived despite coming back and just having absolutely no motivation around this, whatever this kind of market is. I
Right.
don't think I haven't checked TradingView, and TradingView is like the most pointless tool of all time at the minute because I know what the price will be. It's like there's no point even checking. I've got positions open that shouldn't be open, but you know, I don't just stop caring. What about yourself?
It's kind of wild. Like I saw someone tweet out the ETH chart because you're right. I have not been looking at it, but like it's kind of crazy. Like I haven't seen like any crab period of time. Like I'm curious to see the next longest like crab period of time or the most recent like crab market, right? It's been like a good month. It's been over a month of like $1,300 ETH. I don't know. Maybe we're breaking out. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, every time I sign into Twitter, it's less and less people, but more and more kind of shit posts and mental illness coming to the forefront.
You know what I think is like the biggest indicator for where we're at right now is like every other tweet is a thread about how to qualify for airdrops. Which tells you that like the only thing you can get people to do in crypto at this point in time is like to look for free money, to like pick free money up off of the ground, which is like a bad place. You know, like
I'm so glad you brought this up, honestly, because you know when you got like the algorithm kind of feeds you new accounts and things like that, and I was like, And it was like I can't really remember the account off the top of my head, and I don't want to like shit on them, but it was definitely an account focused around like how to maximize potential from like airdrops, and then the next few I started like it suggested me were like airdrop accounts. I didn't even know that was a thing, and obviously it is a thing. Like airdrop accounts, if you have like 1000x Schiller accounts and BSC gem accounts, obviously there's airdrop, like a micro niche of airdrop on crypto Twitter. But yeah, completely right in what you're saying. Like every account is now an airdrop specialist.
right. It's like I as an account, you know, who's on Twitter, like trying to get engagement. You know, that's like one of the things I optimize for, obviously. But I mean, it's so hard to get engagement on like a more kind of in-depth topic right now. People are just not interested in learning about like, you know, the data availability layer of Ethereum or something right now. In a bull market, they're like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, man, yeah, data availability. But now, yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's so right. Like, I obviously try to keep up day to day, and I kind of have to. But like some days, I just wake up, particularly now, and it is like a real slog now, and it's like, I really don't want to listen to this podcast. I really don't want to read this article, but I know I have to, and I know it'll be like worth it in the long run. But and if that's what I'm thinking, fuck me. Like, what must the people at the end receiving end of our content, our jargon thinking? Jesus Christ.
For sure, yeah. Like on one hand, I'm grateful for not being able to check out, right? So like, you know, you work in crypto, you're stuck here, right? And that means like there's still cool stuff happening, right? To be fair, it's just no one's making money on any of that cool stuff quite yet. But on the other hand, like the ability to check out when there's just like a horrible headwind is something like that I did not take for granted the kind of first cycle, you know, like the 2018, 2019. I just kind of wasn't paying attention. And then when it picked back up, I kind of got back into it. But yeah, it was nice to like live my life.
Yeah, those are the days, eh? So what was that like? Is this the real kind of first time you've stuck around and it's like the most balls deep you've been into the space? And like how did that even start off for you? Like when did you kind of venture in and when did you get stuck effectively?
Sure. Yeah. So, like I'm 25, so 2017, I don't know, I can't do the math there, but I was in my, I think my freshman year of college, and my buddy was like, "You got to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum," like a lot of people, right? And we got a little curious there, and then when everything collapsed, I just kind of stepped away, right? And then
Mm.
in early 2020, I kind of came back to it when it was like the bottom of the March COVID crash, and I was like, let's look at my portfolio and see kind of where I want to be. And you know, it was a bad time for crypto, but it was a good time to get interested in crypto again, right? Um, the real Pico bottom there. So then I just kind of like followed it up. I guess on one hand it means I have like no sense for bear markets whatsoever at all. So lose my money on like Vitalik shitcoins. But yeah, that was kind of
What?
the story. And then the I realized that there was like not that much content available for kind of like retail or more casual like specifically written content, because there were lots of crypto YouTubers and stuff at the time, but I realized there wasn't that much kind of like TradFi oriented content. So that was kind of like the first niche I stepped in, because I had studied finance and I kind of had a TradFi background, and I was thinking about stuff like why is no one looking at like a PE ratio, or why is no one trying to figure out if any of these are cash flowing, and the answer is none of them are cash flowing. But
Because
but
that would be too much sense.
yeah, right. Like, can we evaluate the business models? No, absolutely not.
No.
But that was
Don't
kind
talk
of
about
like
that.
that was the first lens I was kind of looking at crypto through, and I mean it was a helpful lens, and obviously I think I've kind of evolved to be a little more kind of crypto native, or at least like wisened up a little bit. Um, and yeah, just kind of started producing that written content as I was kind of already doing the research myself. I mean, I think you to some extent have kind of arrived at a similar, or arrived through a similar kind of like path where it's like, oh well, if I'm doing this, I might as well like write it down. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so yeah, then started the newsletter after that, and figured out how to kind of make a living, slowly but
Sick,
surely over the last yearish.
sick. Yeah. What was one of the picks that dragged you from the depths of that short term bear? Was there like one? I think for me personally at that time it was picking up some more Sol and probably more Luna at the time. RIP, but those are the ones that
Yeah,
stick out of that crash for me.
this is embarrassing, but I was honestly Cardano. Like, I don't even know if I've said this to anybody, but like I made a lot of money on Cardano, because I mean you can look at this like Cardano from the depths of the bear to like the peak. Maybe not to the peak, but like for the first kind of chunk of that bear market, like, or sorry, bull market, from like 2020 to 2021, Cardano like ripped, man. It was crazy. It's like
It's
I think Cardano outperformed like pretty much all layer ones over that time period.
yeah, because I think they were. I'm sure they had that whole narrative of they were going onto their own chain and they had like some other like swaps and things like that, which is effectively, if you try to use it, it was just a JPEG of a like a Uniswap fork or something. But that's this is exactly what you were just saying. Like if you come in with like a traditional lens and you look at things really objectively and like empirically and look at the data and things like that, that'll get you killed in this space. Because if you did
Well,
that with Cardano and realized like nothing actually worked, but
absolutely.
then
Yeah,
you know that whole
yeah. I
community
mean, like
base
I
that'll do
wasn't.
that.
Yes, sorry.
No, go on, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw this tweet the other day, and it really resonated with me, where Cardano is like a layer one for people who have never gone on chain, and I think that's like totally true. And like the marketing's good, and there's like a couple things that they do really well to kind of appeal to this like normie crowd of people who are like buying on Coinbase or whatever. But it's obviously been like pretty successful for them. You know, they're like still a top 10 currency, but or top 10 crypto. But like you know, and it's like the product is almost a token on some level. Like where Ethereum, right? The product is like Blockspace, and they've created a robust Blockspace market, and you know, ultimately a like strong monetary policy, right? We can like geek out about that now. But Cardano is like, yeah, we have a token, and like our founder has a YouTube channel, you know, and like that has worked.
Yeah, God help them if they got their act together, right?
Right. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, a lot of projects are kind of, despite it being like a complete joke, as you said. Well, not as you said, as I'm putting words in your mouth. But it's like a lot of projects would kill for 10% of that, you know, like without the
Sure.
cultishness. But like, and I don't even know how you kind of harbor that. It definitely needs a cult like figurehead, I think.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you've bumped into a few of those in this space in the past.
Oh yeah,
do,
for sure.
do you think we still see those archetypes completely play out next time around?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, like, yeah, there's 100%, because like and I remember like one of the first kind of places we connect was like Spell. We connected with like Spell and like the Danny Sesta coins, right?
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was kind of like right when I was growing. Like Danny Sesta took me from like 300 Twitter followers to like 10,000, right? Because I was tweeting about like Spell. But the thing is, like, that's the archetype that appeals to like normies, you know, to use that word, because they need, you know, like there's even in TradFi there's this meme of like I invest in like founders, not companies, or you know.
yeah.
And I think that like when you're not too technical and you haven't like seen like 100 iterations of every given thing, you know, you look at Spell and you say, oh cool, this like kind of new lending project. And like you look at, like, I remember they had those like UST vaults, right? And it was basically like one way you could conceivably like pay off a loan, right? You could pay off a loan to yourself for free. And that's kind of like an incredible, you say, holy crap, like what an innovation, right? So I think like the combination of kind of like an innovative idea and then like a very charismatic founder that can really get like you hyped up about something, that just appeals to new entrants in a way that it has to repeat. And maybe, you know, older market participants, or not older but more experienced market participants, can kind of wise up to that. But I think like the new market participant is always going to be attracted to that kind of setup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me as well, it's if you can spot that early, there's no reason for you to just not participate just because you can kind of see through the bullshit.
Right.
Particularly if you know you're at a very early stage of like the beginning tick of like a bull market. Like in those situations, for me, it's like, look, the vast majority of times you can kind of see through the shit, but like if you're gonna like play around with like one of these projects, it's potentially gonna do orders of magnitude higher than everything else around it. So then it becomes down to like, do you want to be right or do you want to make some money?
Right. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I don't think we've spoke about the whole Kwon thing. What was that like, from being put on blast from like all these kind of fanboys and fangirls, and was it was it a great day? Was it a great day when it blew up?
I mean, that's the thing, is like I actually talked to like the DeFi Edge about this. We've talked a couple times, like, you know, in kind of a business capacity, right? But
Yeah,
he's like a really kind of savvy guy, and he's built this really cool brand, and more quickly than, you know, pretty much anyone else in the space. And he's got a cool background. And I remember the first call, we've probably talked, you know, like 3 or 4 times and over the internet. But the first time I talked to him, he was like, "Why did you do this? Like, sorry, if like if to whoever's listening that doesn't have background is like, I wrote this thread called the Luna expose thread, and I had found some information that was like a little bit disturbing about Luna, and it wasn't like damning by any means, but I wrote this thread, and then it got like, I got trashed, like absolutely shit on by like 1,000 lunatics, maybe like 10,000 lunatics, you know. But so I was talking to the DeFi edge, he was like, dude, why did you do that? Because, okay, so until you were right, there was no benefit to posting that thread, because you were wrong until like it blew up. So it could have completely backfired in your space if Luna would have kind of gone on as normal and like been a successful project. Like you would have just been wrong for the rest of history. Then luckily you got like really lucky by the fact that this thing blew up, but you couldn't even like rub it in anyone's face, right? You couldn't come out and be like, ha ha ha, I told you so. Like all the comments of these people who have all lost their like life savings, right? Like there's no upside to the so like, was I like, did I have this kind of sense of like satisfaction that like Kwon had kind of been humbled, right? Because really that was like the biggest thing that annoyed me throughout this whole experience was like Kwon was like, hey, you're an idiot, you know, like literally.
Yeah.
Or like all the people in the DMs who are like delete your account, you know, like kill yourself, right? Like, so I thought there would be some cathartic moment like after Luna exploded, and I really did believe kind of Luna was going to explode at some point. But at the end of the day, there was like nothing positive I could really do, you know. And like the people who follow crypto closely kind of like, you know, sometimes they say, hey man, good call, dad. And there were a couple of people who kind of reached out and said, thank you. Like I did pull out my money because of this tweet, you know, it was, you know, Kwon was acting in an unacceptable way, and, you know, I got out or whatever. But yeah, there was no kind of like upside at the end of the day to the collapse. And like, I mean, it sucks that like, you know, $50 billion in market cap was wiped out of the like crypto market, total market cap, and like tons of people lost tons of money, and those are people who are probably never going to come back to the space. So yeah, I mean, it was, in retrospect, I like wouldn't have participated in that whole debacle.
Yeah, so you completely wiped that off. No, but like the issue is with the space, particularly when people are overinvested or kind of just coming into the space, and again they become part of this kind of cult like following. It's objectivity just completely goes out the window. There's nothing like you can say. You never know how many of those accounts are, you know, bot accounts, or, you know, just playing that whole game, because
Right.
you can't like, you can't have an objective conversation, and you can't just have like a civil conversation about something that goes against the grain or completely goes against someone's opinion. Like, what would be a really, really good kind of publication or newsletter? I spoke to Ben about this, one of our kind of good contributors, Ben. I was saying like, we should completely say why protocols won't work in like a short form article format. But I was like, but we'll just get torn to shreds. But he's like, no, but it's like really good on paper to be able to do that, because then obviously if you work backwards instead of like trying to just confirm your bias all the time, you can probably avoid like a load of kind of pitfalls and a load of projects that are just going to completely blow up. But at the end of the day, no one wants to read that sort of shit. Everyone wants to read that it's going to go over another 100x in the next couple of months. So
Yeah,
kudos
right.
for calling it out, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's totally true, right? Like even the way content is distributed or like, you know, multiplied over like algorithms on the internet, it's about positive content over negative content. So like, I mean, it was funny, like in December, maybe 2021 or November 2021, I wrote a thread about how Cardano recommends that their validators actually create a YouTube channel. And I thought this was interesting because there's this whole, you know, like Cardano validator ecosystem, right? Of like people who have a YouTube channel, and then they make like, you know, millions of dollars basically. Well, now it's like tens of thousands of dollars based on the price of Cardano, but they were making like insane amounts of money by operating these Cardano validators, and then they can kind of set their own fee and collect, right, like this, like basically part of the staking rewards of the people who delegate to their validator. And I wrote a thread about that, and it was another time I got kind of like canceled, quote unquote, by the Cardano community. But I like, that was the first time I realized that like negative content is just not successful because it's not as viral by nature. Like people want to see the 1000x. The only people interested in a piece about like saying a bag is going to go to zero are those bag holders, and then the bag holders will hate you for it, right? And they're not going to like go retweet like the quote unquote FUD, which I kind of hate that word anyways, about their own bag, right? So like it's just a poor content strategy unless you kind of have like a really, really strong community that's interested in all of your content in general. But like if you're trying to kind of get like optimized for like retweets, for example, or if you're trying to like, you know, I mean, I have never made a YouTube video in my life, but if you're trying to make a YouTube video, I imagine that like talking poorly about some specific project is like a horrible way to kind of, you know, get your message out in the space.
Yeah. How much do you guys think of that? Obviously, if you got a newsletter, you need to focus on growth and things like that. How much do you consciously kind of feed the machine and feed the algorithm and all that kind of jazz? Because for me, it's like I know I have to do it to a degree, but there's like certain levels of how much I feel kind of comfortable with and how much I could kind of sleep at night with. So I kind of like accept that I'll have to grow a little bit slower just to like, you know, be able to not cringe myself to sleep. But, you know, how do you guys think about that? Because obviously you've got a business you need to maintain, you need to grow and you need to expand. And I don't know if you've like sat down and thought about that kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. And like, it's hard because you, as you know, when you're creating content, I'm sure you feel this way to some extent too, is like you're benefiting from the dopamine of whatever views, impressions, likes you're getting, right? So like you, when you have like something that blows up, right, whether it's like a podcast or a Twitter thread or an article, right, that's like a dopamine feedback to you that like makes you want to produce more of that style of content, right? So, you know, there was a time period like, you know, winter of 2022 where I was like on fire with threads, and, you know, I had a thread that was going viral like every week, like, and it feels really good. So you want to like do more and more to optimize the virality of that content. And I mean, maybe that was like kind of what led me to the point where I made this overly kind of like clickbaity thread about Luna, right? And like, you know, and I kind of stand by what I wrote about in the Luna thread, but you kind of move to try to be more controversial or more, you know, to optimize for engagement over optimizing for like a product like you're really proud of, a piece of writing you're really proud of. And there are a few people in the space who do like really good jobs. I'll talk about Twitter threads specifically because I know I'm known as a Twitter threader. But like John Woo from Aztec Network, he has like, when he produces a thread, it's like an artfully created piece of content, and he's gone really, really viral many, many times. So I think there's definitely a balance there, and I've definitely moved closer to. I want to, you know, that the growing this account is important, growing my business is important, but I'm not gonna like sacrifice my integrity necessarily to kind of reach this growth metric, right? And obviously, like, there's still things like, you know, you should do to be doing, like, you can't write an essay on Twitter, right? You just can't. It won't. That's not the format that you know, reproduces itself on Twitter. So you have to be conscious of like how an algorithm works, but you can also create something that both fulfills the qualifications necessary to go viral and is a good piece of content, kind of standing on its own two legs.
Yeah, completely agree. Speaking of DeFi Edge, he brought something up to me which I was kind of noticing myself, and I'm pretty sure you will have. It's like, do you think with the likes of yourself and Edgy and a few other people that are like have honed that craft of that, really doing well and getting information across through tweet threads, do you think people have kind of seen from an outsider's perspective, it feels like people have seen that method and that medium of kind of trying to get information across as just a growth hack, and now it just feels like I'm logging into Twitter and someone's trying to teach me how to make a peanut butter and jam sandwich. And here's a 20 tweet thread on how to do that.
Right.
Do you think we're hitting saturation? Do you think we've hit saturation? And do you think there are any kind of blue oceans that will be tapped into?
I still think there's a niche for people who produce like good content, because a lot of that content is like, not good to read, or it's not actionable, or it's not educational enough. Like there are plenty of threads that will get a bit of engagement, but they're just not that great at the end of the day. So I still think there's space for people who can really produce a really strong, educational, actionable, and like viral thread. Like that's still a scarce resource in this space. But I think slowly it has been getting kind of commoditized over time, and it will get more and more commoditized over time. And yeah, I think people like me and Edgy, and there's a few other I kind of have in mind, will have to figure out how to kind of maintain a competitive edge. I don't know what that necessarily looks like. If it means like more kind of trying to kind of like spin off your own community, that seems like one potential angle where, if you have your own, like if Edgy kind of created his community of Edgians or whatever, and everyone was in one Discord, right? I mean, to be fair, you are like the basis of this model, right? You've got like a rabid community. Like for having a mid-sized following, you've got like the craziest community, like the most. It's insane. I've mentioned this to you before, I know. But so maybe it's a model like that, or maybe we'll see more kind of in-house influencers. I can imagine that, where like people like me and Edgy will either raise money to create a product and ourselves, or get picked up by some company who understands the value of kind of like a spokesperson, or like an in-house content creator to try to produce these kind of like viral pieces of content. I don't know what it'll look like, but yeah, the space is absolutely becoming more and more commoditized, and because there's zero barrier to entry, or very little barrier to entry, it's going to become more and more commoditized.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So more threads on how to tie your shoelaces coming soon. So what's happening at Crypto Pragmatist, and just fill everyone in what it is, for anyone who hasn't kind of subscribed or anything along those lines, and what I'm also really interested in is someone who's quite frantic and is now building a small team around blockmates and things like that. What's day to day look like? Are you one of these really annoying people who's got all this shit together and just like it runs like a conveyor belt, or?
No, the exact opposite. So Crypto Pragmatist is an email newsletter. We write research, and we write like paid research that we try to make it relatively accessible to kind of retail or people who are not necessarily full-time in the space, who don't have an MBA, and it's also a free newsletter where we just kind of write musings on the crypto market or an educational piece, and that goes out every week, and then our paid version goes out bi-monthly. Yeah, what that's looked like lately is, maybe since like May, I've been really thinking hard about like, okay, what do I have to do to stay alive, to stay competitive in this space? And obviously it's tricky, right? Like a lot of people have left. There's a lot of retail, participants that have just gone to tweeting and reading about completely other things, right? So it's like, it's hard. one thing recently that I've kind of learned to respect is the fact that sometimes you're in a time of incredible tailwinds, and sometimes you're in a time of incredible headwinds. And the time to be working hardest is actually when you're experiencing a huge tailwind. And when you're experiencing a huge headwind, it's time to take your foot off the gas a little bit. Because if there are no new retail entrants into this industry, you're like fighting over a limited slice of pie, and there's only so much work you can do to kind of gain that market share. So
That's interesting because that on the surface that sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? It's like everything should be plain sailing, and it's when we're in like a roaring market and everything's like up only and things like that. And then you also get the adage of people saying like the best time to build in a bear market. But I completely agree with what you're saying. It's like everyone is just fighting over the same scraps, whether we like it or not. All that crypto is an attention economy with regards to if investing content, anything that comes with under this banner, it's an attention economy. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And until you kind of said it, I've probably just been of the mindset that, oh yeah, now is the time to be building shit. But yeah, I do get what you're saying, and that's definitely reflecting in like engagement, viewership, readership that we're seeing on our end as well. So it makes a lot of sense. Bit of a hard truth as well, though.
Right. What I've been really thinking about recently is like how to create, like a smooth running ship, right? Like how can I systematize things? But this is not like the time period of the business where we're going to experience hockey stick growth, because there's literally very few, if any, kind of new entrants to the space. So like if I was a robot, obviously I would keep working incredibly hard, all the time. But like because we're humans and we need to rest up sometimes, like I have taken the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. And then I would say like I've been working a lot more on setting a good base, right? So like, guidelines for content and, figuring out, like better funnels and optimizing, the web page and stuff like that. That's all stuff that I think is valid work to do in a bear market. But as far as like trying to grow subscriber numbers or revenue, that's just like a really, really hard task in a bear market. And in a bull market, you're going to be able to kind of accomplish that a lot better.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about kind of streamlining and getting your house in order. So I think that's definitely the right time to do that. We're just going through a similar sort of process ourselves, and what's difficult is I don't know how you feel about it, but like learning to hand the reins over to the right kind of people as well.
For sure.
Yeah, I got a proper OCD around that, but then like slowly but surely, got good people around us, so it's allowing them to do their shit, and get everything sorted, because we can't do it all ourselves. How many of you guys work on that?
It's just me and Joey. I think you talked to him. And
Yeah,
I hire a contractor here and there, or he'll work with, a person for a little project. But yeah, for the main, it's mostly me and Joey as well.
Sick. So you're gonna gear up for world domination next leg up? Is that what it is? You're gonna actually fight Kwon.
We'll physically fight Kwon. Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, like I think if you're a protocol, you should have a completely different attitude about a bear market, because there's probably so much noise about token price and people are just like so annoying, and there's less noise probably to like build what you really want to build. If you're like if you're a solidity dev, I imagine a bear market is a lot easier on you than a bull market. But yeah, for this style of business, at least, I think it makes sense to kind of accept the fact that we're in kind of a headwind. So I will say that.
Do you guys work with any projects, like any advisory stuff, or would you ever consider building some kind of product yourself further down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot. Is like, I don't know if it would come in the form of like a collaboration, a partnership, or even like acquisition acquihire, but like I think one of the ways to gain competitive advantage is to become the part of a brand, right? Like whether you know, like I know one of the competitive advantages I have is I can get a DM back from just about anyone, and not not any brand. You know, like you can be a brand and have raised $15 million and have an incredible product, and you can get no messages back, or you can be me who has a newsletter and everyone is kind of willing to talk to me, and I see that as being like a huge value add for someone who has a product. So I don't know if that'll come in the form of me raising money and building out a product, me acquiring a product, me merging with another team, the crypto pragmatist, and kind of me related to that being acquired by some kind of startup. I don't know what it'll look like, but I see that that's kind of a possibility for further down the line.
Yeah, that thing about, like, I see a lot of people growing for the sake of growing, but I'm completely on board with what you're saying. It's the access to people that you don't necessarily have access to by trying to grow an account and trying to add value to the spaces. I think it's the biggest asymmetry of having like a large following base, which probably goes overlooked.
Right. Absolutely.
Particular new projects, you want an answer, no one's giving you a straight answer because everyone's doing copy pasta in the Discord. you go into the Berachain Discord at the minute. Good luck trying to get a fucking answer in that place. But yeah, it's really handy being able to message. But again, it's like you see some people who, it's like they're trying to grow an account for the sake of growing an account, and there's no like means to an end with that regards. They don't necessarily have like a good business head on them, or they just see it like they're just fully fueled by the dopamine, and there's no kind of means to the end. But yeah, that I completely agree with what you're saying there with the kind of access to information, and even just kind of being able to lend an ear from someone that's goes completely unnoticed. Really, take it for granted quite a lot.
And about your question about advisory, is we have moved, and now we're in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be trying to collaborate with a few protocols and kind of build out a crypto pragmatist portfolio in terms of like advisory and being able to kind of synergistically work with projects and get allocation. So that's one kind of component of the business, and the business has changed, a little. So I will say, yes, we have been doing some kind of advisory style stuff.
Well, the times you're picking the right time to do it, because those that are sticking around, and there's not an awful lot of wash, and people are kind of struggling to get that kind of those roles and those kind of early seed investments and things at the minute, which is completely counterintuitive, because everyone who talks shit during the height of the bull market saying you should be buying when things are not overcooked. Even at Token 2049 recently, you had the likes of Terra Capital, like CEO, just saying, yeah, we're allocating. That's like smart money. Do you know what I mean? Like that, those people know what they're talking about. And then I'll be stood talking to someone who became a VC at the end of like the last hype cycle, like everyone did. And it was like, oh yeah, we're not really looking to allocate at the minute. It's like, what do you just want? Do you just want to allocate at the tip of a bull market? Is that and call yourself a VC? It's like, do the hard yards now, and what's what we're kind of doing now. It's like taking a lot of trying to allocate an awful lot of capital to the projects that need it most, because it's particularly really hard times in the private markets now. So we're trying to put our money where our mouth is, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, if you think about like a VC is kind of the exact opposite model, or like it's polar to kind of the builder model, right? Where the VC should be working hardest in the bear market, and then the bull market, they should be like going out and raising money and then just like sitting back, right? By and large. So I think, yeah, some VCs are kind of doing this in the opposite order.
Yeah, everyone became a VC towards the end of the cycle. Jesus Christ.
For sure. Yeah, dude. There was some deal, like I almost wrote some small checks at in April or something. And I'm so glad I did not, because oh my god, those valuations now look like absolutely silly,
There's still quite, there's still some projects out there with quite hefty valuations, and the terms aren't the greatest, but it's definitely starting to converge to look something like normal now.
Right.
So it's quite interesting to see, and I think like people need to race to keep the lights on at this point in time. People have struggled for the past near enough since January, February to start to actually get some capital through the door. So it's quite interesting. But what's really interesting and what's nice to really see is there's just a shitload of innovation happening, and it feels like, particularly even at like Token 2049 recently, you could have been mistaken thinking we were in the midst of a bull market. There was like so much optimism around because everyone knows that everyone's just disregarded of price. It's everyone knows that they're going to still be around here in the next like 3 to 5 years. So it was quite optimistic, despite, as I say, if you look at the charts, even though I don't look at them anymore, it's a complete shit show.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big change I've noticed is like no one really thinks crypto is going away this time. Even kind of people who are adjacent or external to the industry, they kind of understand that we're just in a little kind of lull. I mean, I guess it's a little deeper than a lull, but that it'll bounce back, right? So there will be a bull market, and ultimately, kind of we got to think about the best way to position for that.
Yeah. Is there anything that's any kind of little niches that are begin to pique your interest, like little areas?
Yeah, the last week there's a few things. The kind of liquid staking and like MEV, and this is to be fair, this is not the most unique thing to be looking at right now. But like, yeah, the liquid staking space and like stuff like Manifold, Eigenlayer, I don't know how you pronounce it. These projects that are kind of innovating in the block building market or the Blockspace market, staking markets, really interesting. And I think these are going to be really promising because one of the only products we've seen that has kind of product market fit in crypto is Ethereum Blockspace. And if you're building, my thesis around that is if you're building a product that kind of extracts value or creates value around staking in Ethereum Blockspace, then that has the potential to be successful. Yeah, I love gaming is something I'd love to explore because I do think there are going to be like 1000x's in gaming in the next few years, but I've like never been a video gamer myself, like never done anything. So yeah, send deal flow my way, I guess.
I might have one for you actually. I'll send you it after this.
All right. Yeah, like how do you think about games, especially like like it's got like some concept art? Like, is it just like looking at the team or like I don't know.
I like what I'm starting to see happen now. Like previously, people were raising on a video demo, and now what you tend to see is that's not going to cut it anymore. And what I've been quite interested in is projects that are licensing already built games, like plugging into like their own plugging into their own SDK and then building like an in-game economy and tokenomic structure around that sort of thing. So like the hard yards are already done for a lot of games. A lot of games are still trying to find ways to kind of plug into the whole Web3 thing. So it's like I'm going to look at infrastructure that allows, like, bridges the gap effectively for stuff that's already been built and allows like an extra layer of Ponzi-nomics on top. I think is quite interesting. So there are a few, but again, like from what I've seen, it's because everyone wants to build the next 10,000x project, and everyone's of the opinion that GameFi will produce that. There's too much shit coming across people's desks from like people trying to raise with like a video, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's probably fake. Some guy off Fiverr is probably made it.
Right, literally. Yeah, and if you had the resources to either like throw money at everything or to go through that kind of with a fine-tooth comb and figure out how to kind of cut the chaff, then I think that would be like more promising. But for someone like me, I really can't do that. So it's hard to kind of figure out how I'm going to filter that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you've got to think about some of the, particularly if you're like, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not necessarily a gamer. I probably played if I played anything the most, it was probably Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and lost like a couple of weeks of my life when I was like 13 playing that.
Right.
But like that's not my like my shtick. There's much people better than me at that sort of thing. But what I'd kind of assume there is I'd probably overlook something that would do extremely well because it's not my kind of bread and butter. Whereas if you look at something like I know it's a little bit different, but if you look at something like a step in, that would have been something that
Right.
I'd have completely overlooked. Just the whole phrase of move to earn, I'd have been like, I'm out. But that was like as kind of like a 0-1 move. Do you know what I mean? Despite it being a little bit Ponzinomics. So, like, if you're looking at for GameFi projects that are gonna really do that 10,000x or 1,000x or whatever, it's probably going to be something a little bit left field that a lot of people would overlook.
Right.
So again, I don't necessarily have an edge there. I just kind of try and rely on people who I think know what they're talking about. But it'll probably catch us all off by surprise. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I think there's like maybe what I'll ultimately do here is like I think I might have still an edge on being able to get in early, but like to the liquid market, right? So I might, not be in the seed round or, but I definitely have like a bit of a pulse on this space, and that's a bit of an edge there. So, if people are actually beginning to kind of use and play a game, then it might be worth taking a look at. And I mean, I guess that's something you can't even do for most of these kind of like venture rounds, right? Like this product doesn't even exist yet. I have seen some decks where like it just doesn't make sense. They'll be like, oh well, we have this NFT and it does this, and then the token will do this, and the NFT will do the token. It's just like this incentive structure makes no sense at all. And that's like obviously a no, but it's a lot of that is exists,
That might be the way around it, like having a kind of cut off for like a bog standard game, but are the in-game kind of in-game tokenomics and in-game like economic structure, do they make a little bit of sense? Because I guarantee 99% of GameFi projects, they're not going to make a lot of sense, and they're probably going to converge to zero, just like fucking Axie and SLP and things like that too. So that might be like, someone might get it right. Someone might have like a really good Ponzinomic backbone and bring that into like a GameFi project. But then again, does it end up just looking like yield farming with a few extra steps and a few nice NFTs slapped on top of it?
Right. I kind of imagine that, and honestly, it's hard to believe that like just kind of the economic facts of this is if it's a game, the value will be like sucked out of it, right? Unless there's some kind of like social value component to it. But if I can play it, if I can live in Uganda or whatever and play it on my iPhone or my Android, right? Then why will that kind of value not converge to the minimal value of whoever's time is going into like playing that game, right? So I can see it, some like artificial Ponzi bubble being created for a short amount of time. But if someone's willing to play the game for $2 an hour, won't the token eventually converge to $2 to $2 an hour, right? Like I can't see huge wealth being generated from playing a game.
Yeah, or you just end up seeing what we've seen with everything else that came before it. Like even again, going back to stepping a little bit different. It was like I said a video on Twitter and it was like this is who you're playing against, and it was like 15 mobile phones on this like wavering board, and it was like, yeah, they're not people. You're literally playing against
exactly. So tell me like why every GameFi game wouldn't kind of converge to that point. I don't have a good answer quite yet. Unless like it's like the like the RuneScape, like the wizard hat, right? Where there's like a social component where it's like, oh yeah, I guess we're kind of seeing it with these like Reddit avatars where they're like, oh yeah, I want a cone for my Reddit avatar.
Yeah, they snuck. That was a Trojan horse, that wasn't it? I don't even think they realized they've got a lot of NFTs yet, the Reddit users.
Wait, that's what I was trying to figure out. I like went on Reddit for like 3 minutes yesterday trying to figure out, because I've got like a couple Reddit accounts, right? So I can go claim my Reddit NFT.
I'm not entirely sure. And I'm not sure how that realm works.
We could have thousands of dollars sitting in Reddit wallets and we don't even know it.
I love how like everyone on crypto Twitter is like really pissed off that they're the ones that didn't make money for a change.
Also, Reddit has experienced a complete 180 on NFTs now that someone's getting their free money. Like, oh yeah, Reddit. And also, they believe that like their project is the best project, right? Like, oh, NFT JPEGs? You kidding me? No, Reddit NFTs. That's what's up. Utility, bro. Like we haven't all seen this 20 times before.
Well, there's going to be some good opportunity for some people who want to pull some wool over some Reddit users' eyes, put it that way. So some people will make some good money over the coming weeks. Right. Jack, I won't take too much more of your time. I'll let you get off. But yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on, and I'm glad we could finally find a time where we both weren't completely useless.
Yeah, man, thanks. It's been a ton of fun. As always, we'll see how many we have to do before we can get into up on mode again. And yeah, it's been great chatting.